program over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's great to see everybody. I do recognize some familiar faces. Steve, I don't know if this would be okay, but it would be helpful for me if everybody could just do a brief introduction, who they are and what synagogue or congregation they're affiliated with and where it is. I know several of you, but some of you I don't know. So is that okay? Is there enough time to do that?
Noah, we're good.
I'll just call on everybody. Larry,
Okay.
you're first. Unmute
Larry.
yourself, Larry.
Yeah, okay, as I said before, I'm representing Gemilas Chesed congregation in White Oak, Pennsylvania. Shawn well knows me, and
Yes.
she has done an excellent job at her position, and we've been in contact with her as far as security, etc. We're a smaller synagogue in White Oak, Pennsylvania. We have a core of dedicated members, and we try to keep it going. And that's basically what we are. And I find this interesting about this organization, getting smaller organizations, small shoals to increase membership. We're trying a lot of things. It may give me an education as to all of us education as to how we can increase membership and keep it going.
Thank you. Mike Rotman.
Mike Rotman, Congregation Ahavath Hashem, the Carnegie Shoal. We're located in Carnegie, and we are also struggling to get minions every week, and we have holiday services as well.
Great, thank you.
Marilyn Posner.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Posner from Beth Israel in Washington, Pennsylvania. And we do have services every week, but we do have our property, our synagogue, up for sale.
Okay.
Thank you. Karen Michal.
We hope that we will continue even when we get a buyer.
Okay.
Thank you. Karen Michal.
Cantor Michal Grace Schaefer from Congregation B'nai Israel in Butler, and Shawn, we're familiar. It's hard to think that you've only been here since 2019, because in that short amount of time, you've just done so much. And our congregation is very thankful for everything that you do and every way in which you've helped us.
Thank you.
Laurel.
I'm Laurel Suslow with Sons of Israel in Du Bois.
Okay.
Thank you. Kimberly.
I'm Kimberly Weinberg. I am way up on the New York border, up in Bradford. We are hanging on by a thread, and I have been extremely lackadaisical about any security because it kind of feels like we barely even know we're here. So,
right.
Probably not a great idea with, white supremacist enclave in the next county over, but
yes.
So I'm very anxious to hear what you have to say for me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with in Du Bois, Pennsylvania, Sons of Israel congregation, and I'm Joe Rickert.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Hi, I am Jessica Mundy, and I'm also with Sons of Israel in Du Bois. And just like Bradford, we are hanging on by a thread.
Thank you. Okay, Shawn.
All right, great. Thank you all very much. That just helps me put it into context a bit. So, Steve, thank you for the introduction. So, just to back up a little bit, my role as community security director is to make sure all of our organizations in the Western Pennsylvania area have good physical security, but also good security as far as staff and training and personnel in the event that there is somebody who can bypass all the physical security enhancements we've put into place in many of our organizations. And we also do a lot of threat tracking. So I wanted to just show, I have a brief presentation that shows some of the work we do in case you're not familiar. And as I'm going through this, please know I'm available to come to any of your synagogues to do any of this training or threat assessment or whatever you would like. I will happily travel. In fact, it's hard to define our catchment area. I know it's Western Pennsylvania, but I'm actually traveling out to State College, I think in early December, to meet with some of the folks out there too. I'm not so much worried about where you are geographically. I'm more worried about, do you have adequate security? And if there's anything that I can do to help get you to where you need to be, please call upon me. I am happy to help do it. We also have a lot of resources, and I want to share those with you as well, so everybody knows. Let me see if oh good, I have share screen already a step ahead.
Is this something that you can email me and I can forward it to the group?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Yep. I may take a few things out. Some of it is law enforcement sensitive, but I have, for the bulk of it, absolutely. I can certainly share with you.
Thanks, Shawn.
Yep. Okay, so let me just start on the first slide. That is my email address. And again, I know you'll have this on hand. My email gets to me 24/7. So it's almost, as good as having my phone number. Email me. Don't hesitate to call. I can share that with you as well. But I did want to assure you that my email goes to me on my phone, which I feel like we all seem to have attached at our hips lately. But you can please reach out for me anytime, whether it's a question, issue, or are just not sure how to proceed with something that is security related. And then I just really want to define what our program focuses on and the 4 things that we really do that are just absolutely essential for keeping your congregation safe, but well beyond that, your community and yourselves. So the first pillar you'll see is awareness. And what this really means is making sure everybody is situationally aware, looking over their shoulders, paying attention, see if they see anything unusual, suspicious, but then taking it a step beyond that and telling somebody. So whether it's one of you on the call here who's the head of your various organizations, or alerting police, alerting me, just making sure that if you see something, say something. And I know it's it's interesting because yesterday was 9/11 and I worked in Newark and in New York a lot. And I remember that was always the subway slogan, see something, say something. But it's so true. Just please, if you see somebody who's suspicious or is acting inappropriately or disruptive, whether you're calling 911 or just alerting somebody, it's important that we do that and that we look out for not just ourselves, but for everybody else. So that's what awareness is. We do have on our website a incident reporting form that folks have used in the past. And I'm actually going to show you some examples of things that they've seen in the community that may not warrant a call to 911, but are suspicious enough that they warrant alerting somebody. So I'll share some of those with you. So that's one way, if you go to our website, you can record it, or you can just call me or email me. The second area we really focus on is what's called target hardening, and that's making sure that your physical space has all the appropriate security enhancements available to it. And I recognize that this can get costly, so I'll speak to that too as I go forward here, but making sure you have very good physical security in place at your organization. The third part is training and training and training, and we do so much of this because We work very hard to make sure we have that physical protection at our organizations, but if somebody is able to bypass that in any way, we all, whether we're congregants or whether we're, just attending, eating at a restaurant, attending a movie, no matter what it is, we have to know what to do if we're presented with an active threat. So we do a lot of training. We also do a lot of life-saving training. So it's not just active threat, it can be CPR, it can be stop the bleed, all of these essentials that are really focusing on preservation of life. And then the last part of what we do is law enforcement liaison. And I know Cantor Mahal knows this, no matter where you're located, it is important to have a good relationship with the local or state police, depending on where you are, making sure you know who, whether it's the commander or the lieutenant or whoever your, rank of your officers are, that you have a good point of contact, making sure that they're familiar with your location, making sure that they have been to your location, that they can walk through it, that they can see it. We don't want the first time they show up at your respective synagogue is due to an active threat and they just don't know what the building's like, they don't know the layout, they don't know their way around. Just establishing that relationship is critical. And if you take it a step further, they're a great contact to have if you see something suspicious. Maybe it's a suspicious individual and you call and alert them and they say, hey, that's somebody who's known to the community, they don't pose a threat, or hey, that's somebody who's known to us, please be very careful. But just establishing that relationship. So that's kind of how I break down, the different roles when you're looking to make sure your respective location has security in place. I'm just briefly going to mention some of the things that we track here. And so these are very much relevant to Squirrel Hill, but they're good security reminders for all of us. The picture on the far left is a bullet hole that was shot through the front door of a home here in Squirrel Hill. Actually, I'm at JFCS right now, but actually right down the street from where I am. And there was a rabbi living next door. And he called and he said, hey, I my neighbor just noticed this. Was this meant for me? I feel like maybe we're being targeted. And I responded. I worked with the crime scene unit from Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. And it turns out that it was not meant for the rabbi. It was meant for the home next door where it was. Also a Jewish home, but it was a personal matter, a personal grievance, not because the residents of the home were Jewish. The picture to the right in the circle is a man named Andrew Clinton. And some of you may have heard his name. He's a 20-year-old male who is just extremely fixated with the Jewish community. And really, he himself is not Jewish. He pretended to be. He wore a kippah. He offered services at many Jewish homes to go in and do remodeling or handyman work. And while he was there, he was either stealing money or Judaica. When law enforcement caught him, and many people brought him to our attention, and this goes back to see something, say something. When I went back to my emails and incident reports, I probably had 20 incidents of people saying, hey, something's off with this guy. We can't put our finger on it. And then law enforcement actually caught him red-handed, and we were able to go back and really support their investigation. He was arrested for multiple burglaries and thefts. And inside his home, when they searched it, were 30 boxes of Judaica, just for no reason that we know about, other than he's got this inappropriate fixation. So he is currently out on bail waiting trial. The picture to the right of the male trying to enter through the double doors here, this is actually Friendship Circle, and they have an extremely robust security system in place. They have what we call a vestibule or a man trap, where you go through one set of double doors and then you have to get buzzed in through a second set. This individual they let in, and the lesson from this is he didn't look suspicious, he didn't seem suspicious until he got through that second set of doors, and he's already inside, and he started acting very inappropriately, very disruptive. And fortunately, he left without incident, but after that, they really had to revise their security protocols and not just let somebody in. And so that just is an ongoing lesson. We always teach that. Make sure you know who's coming through your doors. But when you have a man trap, it's even, or sorry, a vestibule, it's even easier because that person can come through and then keep them in the vestibule while you are vetting them out. So it was just a good reminder to them and to all of us as we try and be so cautious with who we're letting through our doors these days. The top right is a photo of a man named Richard Greenberg, who is a member of the Jewish community, also goes by Kilt Man. He is somebody who is not allowed in several of our shuls here in Squirrel Hill because of his disruptive behavior. And he can be cyclical. Sometimes he gets very agitated, and sometimes he's actually seems very congenial. But we've had to call police several times because of him being at some of our locations and acting inappropriately. So not a threat, none of these are anti-Semitic threats per se, but I wanted to show you some of the other incidents that we work on in our own community. And then here's just a few more. On the right is just another photo of Richard Greenberg, in case any of you have seen him or are familiar with him. The picture on the left was aftermath from Representative Dan Frankel here in Squirrel Hill and several others, whether in the political community or religious community, spoke out against Mastriano, who Mastriano and DeSantis were up here for a rally. And this is apolitical. I'm not trying to be political in any way, but just tell you what happened. Representative Frankel and some others spoke out against Mastriano and his support of Gab. And if you're familiar with Gab, it is a communication platform online where people can post and talk to one another. Very much a proponent of free speech, but also under that kind of underbelly of free speech is a lot of white supremacism and similar rhetoric. And so we have seen many folks using Gab to promote white supremacy, neo-Nazi theories and rhetoric. So many of the folks called Mastriano out for this. And then the CEO of Gab started then sending threats to Frankel and some of the others. And then we're putting these Jewish tropes out on Gab. And it became very, a very threatening environment for our folks, some of the community leaders here who spoke out, as well as the editors of the Jewish Chronicle who published some of this. So fortunately, I think it's died down some, but just some of the, pure anti-Semitic rhetoric we can see if you can just, you can tell from the tropes that are right there. We found a swastika painted on the garage of a home in Wilkinsburg. We get probably one of these reports to us a week, whether it's Wilkinsburg, Squirrel Hill, or the surrounding area. And typically what we do is ask for whoever the person is to remove it. In this instance, they don't want to remove it. It's a private home, and they said this is our First Amendment right to have this up here, as distasteful as it is for everybody. We work closely with the ADL and are still trying to make headway. I've got to say, in most cases, people will take it down. But again, just an example of some of the things we've seen here. We alert police. I alerted the chief of Wilkinsburg Police just for awareness. So when I talk about all these incidents that get reported to us, we have definitely seen an uptick. We've been tracking them since 2020. And these are not all anti-Semitic. They're representative of some of the things I just showed you. But you can see where we have certainly picked up with our reporting of suspicious incidents, which I don't equate entirely to the rise in anti-Semitism that we've seen. I mean, we have certainly seen that, but I don't think there's a direct correlation, because I'd like to think too that in our community, we've gotten so much better about reporting. So I think some of the increase is due to the fact that people really are reporting on things that they are finding suspicious. And then with the training we right now are averaging probably 3 trainings a week. We go out to all of our congregations, our day schools, community centers. Today we're at JFCS, just training on whether it's active threat, life-saving training, situational awareness, de-escalation. And so we've trained nearly 5,000 people this year in 58 different trainings. We will come to you. We can do it via Zoom. We're happy to do this in any way, that would work best for you. One thing, though, I do like to advocate is coming to your location, because what we do, and we're going to do it here today at JFCS, is practicing locking down. So we really teach run, hide, fight. So if you can run and get out as fast as you can. So that means knowing where all your exits are, secondary egresses, knowing where to go in an emergency. And some of our larger locations have multiple doors. So we really walk through the building to make sure that everybody knows where, even if it's a ground floor window, you can get out there if you have to. Then we work on barricading. It's run, hide, fight. The hide part, if you can't run, you're going to have to hide. And that hide piece is really barricading. So where in your particular building can you barricade? Where can you go in that has a good locking door? If it's glass, can you pull a shade over it? Can you turn out the lights? Can you, barricade by putting chairs and tables in front of it, silencing your phone, all of these things. We don't do drills, we just practice it. So everybody has a bit more of a comfort level with it in the event that has to happen. And then we do talk about fighting a little bit. I don't do defensive tactics training per se, but we do offer it. We're starting to offer it once a month at the JCC for folks, because we've had many people come to us and say, hey, if I have to fight, what does that look like? So we have started offering that once a month at the JCC. And we brought in a trainer who is an expert in Krav Maga. So he does that. Let me just pause here and see if anybody has any questions, because I'm going to shift gears from some of that and go into how we fund some of the security upgrades.
If you have any questions, just unmute yourself first. Okay, Shawn.
Okay, all right. So a lot of the physical security enhancements we talk about, well, first, let me back up. What we like to do at each of our locations is do what we call a threat, vulnerability, risk assessment. So if you've ever heard that acronym TVRA, threat, vulnerability, risk assessment. We come to your location, we walk through it, we say, here are the things you're doing really well. Here are the things you should look at upgrading. For example, if you have a parking lot, but no lighting, exterior lighting, we would say, hey, that's a vulnerability. You don't have security cameras. You don't have doors that lock or access control. We'll go through and lay out those items for you in a report format with pictures, and it's very comprehensive. And these are extremely important too, because if you do want to apply for grant funding, you already have to have a security assessment in place. So if any of you have not yet had an assessment, but would like an assessment, please let me know. I do these. I have somebody from the emergency management department in the city who does them. We have somebody with Allegheny County, and then we have Department of Homeland Security. So no matter where you are in the state, we have that coverage for you, but these are just very important assessments to have done. And then we have in the state of Pennsylvania a state security grant through the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. So it's the PCCD grant that will enable you to ask for up to $150,000 for security funding. And that actually is going to open soon. It's going to open in early October. Actually, it's going to open, I think, sometime this month. It's well ahead of last year. Last year it opened January 3rd, I think. This year it's going to open before October 1st. So that's the state security grant. We also have a federal security grant. It's called the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. NSGP. And in that grant, you can also ask for up to 150,000. That one will probably open in March of 2023. So between both grants in our Pittsburgh, greater Pittsburgh Jewish community, since 2020, we've been able to get over, the $3.4 million that you see on the screen for various access control. But what I want to share with you, more important than any of this, is because I know grants can be a bit overwhelming, especially, I can tell you for me, I had never done one before coming to this job, but also for small congregations. So Federation offers grant writing assistance. We have 2 folks that provide grant writing assistance free of charge. We pay for them. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. We have a woman named Eileen Cohen and another woman named Kaya Angle. Both are fantastic. So if that's something that would be of value to you, please let me know, especially if you're thinking state grant, because like I said, that's coming much sooner. We just found out last week it's coming much sooner than we had anticipated.
Shawn,
Yeah.
is the sequence then they contact you to help them do a TVRA, a threat vulnerability risk assessment, so then they
Yes.
will then know what hard material they're going to need?
Yes.
And then if that's the case, then how do they actually get started with the grant process?
Okay. Great questions, because this, like I said, we usually have a much more methodical approach, but since the state grant really snuck up on us this year, we haven't been able to get our guidance out like we typically would. But yes, first step is the TVRA. And yes, just please email me if you need one, because I will connect you with whether it's city, county, or state, with the person who can come do it. Anybody who's out of Allegheny County, it's probably going to be Bob Winters from the Department of Homeland Security. So I do want to make a really important clarifying point, though. For the state security grant, you'll see up on the slide, it says state PCCD security grant. You do not need one of these done, but it's very helpful. You don't need to submit it with the grant, but it will really be a good roadmap for you, because that expert is going to come to you and say, you need access control, you need cameras, you need bollards, and we'll lay this out. And it will really give you kind of that recipe as to what to ask for in your grants, in your state grant. But you don't need a physical copy to go with that grant. The federal nonprofit security grant program, you need that assessment, and you can't apply to this grant without that assessment. And further, you can't ask for anything that is not specified in the assessment. So that is very much you get your assessment and then you ask for the things that are vulnerabilities through that grant. So I know it's a bit of a nuance, but if any of you are thinking about applying for the state security grant, Encounter Mahal, I know I've already spoken to you, so I know we're going to start focusing on you. Please let me know. Step 1, we'll get you set up with a TVRA or just a security assessment. You can just call it that. And then we need to, from there, look at what are the most important things that you should ask for. The state security grant is a matching funds grant. So this is another really important distinction. If you are asking for below $25,000, there's no match. But if you're asking between $25,000 and $75,000, there's a 30% match. And if you're asking $75,000 to $150,000, there's a 50% match. So please keep that in mind. So you will have to have those matching funds unless you stay below $25,000. The federal grant does not have a matching funds requirement, but the competition to get the federal grant is a lot more stringent than it is to get the state security grant. And we've seen over the past 3 years that the state grant has been in place, we've seen some people have gotten it 2 or 3 times. Some people have applied for 2 or 3 years and haven't gotten it. So that's where our grant consultants are very good. We're trying to figure out what the secret sauce is, but we do want to start focusing on that one sooner rather than later. The NSGP, the federal grant, we have some time to wait on that. So that's the distinction. When I send you the PowerPoint, I'm going to send you kind of a one-page document that really lays out both of them and the differences between the two, just for planning purposes. Okay. Does anybody have questions on the grants? Okay. So for those of you who, you need money to make these important security enhancements, in the interim, what I like to do is provide this guidance, because these are all things that you can be doing now and working on now, without a lot of funding. So this is something too, you'll have it in the PowerPoint, but I can send it to you separately. This document I really like because, as the head of your congregation, or if you have a security committee, you can get together and really make sure that you've got each one of these important items, that you've looked at them and have really gone through them to make these important security changes. So, number one is pretty straightforward and easy, except for the high holidays. It makes things a bit tricky just to have one entrance point, but just making sure you're making a single point of entry, because if not, it's very hard to monitor who is coming into your space. Testing alarm systems. I don't know how many folks have panic buttons. I've gone through and I've, met many people who have panic buttons, but they don't test them or their alarm systems. So, even before high holidays, just call your alarm company if you have one and say, hey, I want to put it in test mode. I'm going to do a quick test. Making sure everybody in your congregation knows the exits if they have to get out in a hurry. And moving boxes and any kind of clutter you have from stairwells. Making sure local police have your floor plans or keys to get into the building in a chance of, if there's an emergency. And I can tell you firsthand, this became a critical issue during the hostage standoff that happened at Congregation Beth Israel, outside of Dallas, Fort Worth, and Colleyville, Texas. Police were not able to get into the building immediately, nor did they have the floor plans. And that's something that after the attack on the Tree of Life building, we've worked really hard with all of our congregations, all of our physical spaces, to make sure that we have digital floor plans and that we have a way for police to get in an emergency. And we've worked with many of our locations to make sure they have outside what's called a Knox box, and it's KNOX, a Knox box. And those are placed right by your front door. And in them is our law enforcement has the code to get in them, law enforcement, first responders. And really traditionally, they were more used for fires, just as so fire department could get in quickly. But we want to make sure that if any type of first responder comes, they need to be able to get in the building. Typically, that's fine if you can get to the door, but if it's a hostage situation or you're barricaded, you can't come open the front door. And many of our doors now are high-level security doors, so they're hard for law enforcement to breach. And a lot of our doors and windows have the bullet-resistant film on them, the Mylar film. Those are also hard to breach, so something to think about. I'm not going to go through each one of them because there's several, but you'll have this, and I think it's really good to develop a security committee or just a group of volunteer individuals that can help you go through these steps to make sure you're doing these. And some of you may already be doing all of these, but just some good things to consider. These are also taking us away from everything that needs funding. These are things that you could be doing for low cost, no cost, just making sure that you've got all of these things in place. We have really worked too on signage, and that's something I'm happy to help with too. What we've seen is sometimes first responders go to a location that has multiple doors and there's no labeling on the doors, whether it's A, B, C. And so things like that seem, rather inconsequential, become extremely invaluable during a crisis situation. And again, that's part of a lesson learned from the attack on the Tree of Life building. What doors are what? So some of these are, like I said, they're low cost, no cost. And these are all things that we can help you with. Oh, I should have mentioned this too. This is really important because some people pay for vulnerability assessments. They'll hire private companies. This is not a knock on private companies, but we do these for free and our folks do an outstanding job. So I would never advocate paying for one. You're welcome to, but our folks here that we work with are fantastic. So they are free of cost. You should not have to pay for those. One of the last things I wanted to mention to everybody is just for awareness, because it would be, if you're not already part of the system, it might be good to be in this database. So Blue Point is an emergency alert system that we have put in 19 of our locations now. We started with our day schools and our early learning centers located within our synagogues, and we're trying to branch out from there to JFCS. It's in JCC. We're trying to get into JAA. We want to make sure that all of our spaces have an emergency alert system. I know many folks have panic buttons, but these work a little bit differently. So it's a police pull, much like you would see a red box for a fire pull station. And then there's also a medical option. These are designed to alert first responders immediately if there's an active threat. And unlike a panic button, these will go directly to police as what they call a level 0, meaning it's the highest level of threat there is. So it will bypass any type of other calls coming in through 911. So police will respond immediately. So it's that instant police response. And then the other important element, and again, these are I was part of the crisis response to the Tree of Life massacre, and I worked very closely with my predecessor, Brad Orsini, and he and I are the ones who sat down and said, this is not this system per se, but these are things we need. So that's what led us to Blue Point. So we saw the other thing we need is that building-wide notification. If there's an active threat, everybody needs to know, especially in some of our larger locations. So there's a PA announcement that will go off and strobes will go off. So everybody within the building knows there's an announcement saying there's an active threat in the building. And then the third part is for some of our larger locations where there could be 100 staff members, teachers and administrators, they will get the alert on their phone too, that there's been an active threat at one of our locations. So in addition to that, every single head of every one of our Jewish organizations will also get a notification. And the reason for that is, the community needs to know, the Jewish community, the greater community needs to know if there's a threat at one of our organizations. We all need to know because we don't know if that may be a coordinated threat or not. And again, I go back to the Tree of Life massacre. We did not know if initially on all the radio calls and descriptions, we got that there were 2 threat actors. So even though we had the assailant in custody, we were still looking for somebody else. So just something that helps us notify the community of the situation, and it's interactive. So this way we can get word back out. Threat's been eliminated. You can get out of your barricade and go home, or threat has not been eliminated. So we have, like I said, we put this in 18 of our locations, and we're trying through grant funds to hope to spread it to other locations as well. And then these are just pictures of what it looks like. So this is at Road of Shalom, and this is the hall of the Early Learning Center, and you can see the strobe that would go off, and then there's the PA announcement that you would hear. Oh, you know what I didn't do in the beginning, because this is a video. Bear with me 1 minute. I'm going to back out because I think I have to, when I share it, I have to, whoops, hold on. Yep. I have to share my sound because I want to make sure you're able to hear it. Okay, so this is at the Early Learning Center at Temple Ohav Shalom in Allison Park. So it's one of the teachers and she
wanna,
has to activate.
you need the lights?
Nope, I'm good. Okay, go into the pool station.
At the bottom.
Left.
And then you push in and pull down. It's good.
Attention. The blue point system has been activated. Law enforcement is on the way. Initiate lockdown procedure.
There we go.
So you can see the strobes going off and the PA, and then the teachers are all getting the notification on their
Law
phone.
enforcement is on the way. Initiate lockdown procedures.
And then it says,
Attention. The blue point system has been activated.
now we're getting a phone call.
Law enforcement is on the way.
Okay. The last thing that I want to mention, and well, I was going to say I have mine physically here, but I don't know that that's going to help. Every time we do training, I always bring the go bags with me and I go into what's in them. But I think it was almost 3 years ago, March of 2020, we had a volunteer effort where we built 500 go bags for the community. And these are really emergency bags that contain a first aid kit, but beyond that, it contains a trauma kit if you have to render first aid on a serious bleeding type of injury. It contains items for barricading, evacuation, for example, a hammer to break a window if you have to get out of a window, protective gloves, goggles, cell phone chargers if you're barricading for a protracted period of time, flashlight, paper, pens. All of these items we really found in working with other organizations who have what they call ready bags, go bags. We always had these in law enforcement in the trunk of our car, just a utility bag for emergencies. And we have them in every classroom, and we have them at reception at most of our organizations. Many of our folks have 2, 3, if not 4 of them, especially for teachers who go out on the playground. You can carry it with you when you go out. I'm hoping the only things ever used out of these are the first aid kits, but if they're used, just let us know. So that's something too. If you think you would like these, we can work to get these to you too. We just, we built 500 and then we just ordered supplies to make 50 more, because we've seen even through COVID, we've really spread out much more so than we used to. Some of our schools are now using other spaces, and so we've had to build more. But if this is something you're interested in, we can also provide these to you too. And what I would do is just give you a brief overview of what's in them and why. Another example is we have, I'm looking here, stand by, I'm going to grab it just to show you, but each of our go bags, and this is not it, but each of our go bags has a doorstop in it. If you are in an area where you have to barricade, but the door doesn't lock or the lock's not working and it's a door that opens in, you shove the doorstep under the door. So we have 22 items in here, and I would just do a quick briefing to all of you if you want one on why the items are in here and how can they be of value in a time of emergency. And then here's the last thing I have. This is just a list of resources. We have our website, certainly, and some of these documents I've already mentioned. There's another really good website. It's actually through Department of Homeland Security, faith-based organizations, houses of worship, some really good tools on there. Power of Hello. It's one of my favorite documents, guides. It is an exceptional 3-page. How do you really greet somebody at your synagogue? How do you assess them? And it's just that power of hello, the tools that we all have to say, hey, welcome. It's nice to meet you. What brought you here? And you're being welcoming, but you're also trying to learn who they are and learn more about them and see if there's something that may not be quite right. And then I don't know if any of you are familiar with Secure Community Network, which is where my predecessor, Brad, went to work. It's a national organization that provides guidance and security to Jewish organizations throughout North America. And they also have amazing guidance on their website too. So just a couple of resources I wanted to make sure you guys were all aware of. And then, again, just in summary, making sure you have a good security plan, making sure you're sharing it with your congregation, practicing, sharing it with law enforcement, and that if something does happen, you feel like you have everything, the tools you have to commit to action and really make sure we're saving lives of our friends, family, congregants, and the community at large. So that is all I have. Okay, it's almost 1 o'clock. And I will, I will take any questions you have. I'm free for probably another 10 or 15 minutes until I have to go to my next meeting.
Shawn, thank you.
Yes.
This was great. Your PowerPoint is so clear and so easy to understand and informative as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Marilyn.
Shawn, let me know if we did the wrong thing. About 2 weeks ago, our secretary in the synagogue, she's there 3 days a week. She's not there alone because her husband is our maintenance man.
Okay.
And we do not employ a rabbi, but our former rabbi lives in the community.
Okay.
A call came in to the synagogue and the secretary took it. A man asked for the rabbi and she said, he's not available. She didn't say he's not here with us anymore.
Yeah.
She said he's not available because sometimes he does get calls. And the man immediately started being very profane about the rabbi and she hung up.
Yes. Okay.
She did not know who he was or anything like that. It was decided not to tell you, although there was a little discussion. Should we have done something?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even though you hung up and maybe thought you mitigated that threat, what if that behavior escalates, right? If he now is going to come in person, whether, he shows up in person, tries to get in, if he calls again, I think it's just good for awareness. I'm not saying there needs to be a law enforcement response, but what number did he call from? Did he say who he was? These are all things that we can look into. And then we keep a database too here in Pittsburgh and a national one. We're tied in through Secure Community Network to see if this is somebody who maybe calls our other synagogues, or maybe it's personal. So I think just doing a bit of that background work would be really helpful. And it may just be it may amount to nothing. It may just be an irate individual who's going to, maybe that's where it'll end, or maybe he'll move on to another synagogue. So we want to make sure that we at least have some visibility on it. And like I said, it may be nothing, but it may amount to something. So I would rather be safe than sorry. And then further, identifying that phone number, if you were able to identify one, we can do a lot of checks on that. We work very closely with law enforcement, so we can do checks and then seeing who that person is through the phone number, we can get them identified. Then what we'll typically do is a social media scrub. Is this person on Facebook or other places? Are they posting anti-Semitic comments? Are they posting threatening comments? So we can get more of that just kind of snapshot on who this person is. So always very helpful.
Thank you.
I'll make sure that everyone knows about that. Thank you.
Yes. Yep. And honestly, I send it to us. If it's nothing, it goes in our files and, we all move on. But if it's something, it's just so essential that we know. Yep. Thank you, Marilyn.
Kimberly, did you have a question?
Well, I was, thinking, as I said, we're so small up here, we barely know we exist. So, like I said, I've been extremely lackadaisical, but because of that, one, I'm definitely going to write to you and we need an assessment. But two, I'm wondering in some of these, trainings do you ever pool resources? I mean, you wouldn't need to in Pittsburgh, but with other groups, I'm just thinking, perhaps the Islamic Society across the border would be interested
Mhm.
in the same things if we offered a training, that
Yep.
that other groups, could share in.
Absolutely. Like you said here, we don't need it as much because we have so many organizations,
We don't
but,
have Jews.
right, right. But I think that'd
We
be
don't
wonderful.
even have Black people. I'm sorry. I was just.
Yeah, no, I think it would be really great to include the faith-based community. And that's actually something we're looking to do here. We haven't gotten there yet. But if you would like to put something together, I'd be happy to come out and, make a day of it where we could really include your other faith-based contacts. And if you know who they are, or we could maybe help you identify them, and just open it up. Or if you think it might be easier too, we can also do this via Zoom. It's just not as effective. I mean, it'd be like today, right? Today, maybe some good reminders, but if we were in person, this would be a lot more hands-on. I'd be able to show you a lot more things. So, but please reach out. That's one thing that I'm really, I take it very seriously, the training, just because I want to make sure everybody has exposure to it. And so, yeah, just let me know.
Okay.
This cohort is ongoing.
Mhm.
Do you have any and we have, by the way, we have cohorts in other regions around the country as well. One being in Central PA in the end of October, Steve Eberly and David Wood and Nicolette, Chandel Hockenberry are
Yes.
going to be doing a presentation on that. Anyway, the cohorts are ongoing. Do you have should we check in with you once a year for a refresher? Is that something that you think is
Yes.
just like we get our electrical and our plumbing each year in the house, once a year?
Yes, I think that's fantastic. I really do. I like that idea a lot. For today's purposes, I kept it brief. I did not even go into the threat tempo, what we're seeing, the rise of anti-Semitism, because I really just wanted to get you kind of drill down on actual security needs. But I think that's good. I mean, once a year would be a really effective way to do it. And if nothing else, it's a good reminder to everybody to take time and focus on this, because I totally understand everybody's so busy. This is one more thing to add to your plate. But that's where I feel like I can be of value, because if I can take something off your plate and help you, I will. But I love the once a year. It's just a great reminder. And we can add in a quick training too, even virtual, a quick refresher on stop the bleed, CPR, run, hide, fight.
Great. Carnegie and Du Bois, have you had threat assessments done on your buildings?
We had a threat assessment done by her predecessor, and we did some beefing up of our security. My biggest concern is that since that threat assessment, we, in order to survive, started renting out the basement of our building. Ours is a 2-story building. The basement is now being used by the Carnegie School of Dance for a children's dance school. And, we have fairly decent security upstairs where we are.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how much security they have, especially when they have parents and others coming in for recitals. And they're not there when we are, but it certainly doesn't preclude from somebody who's a terrorist from going in and getting at our building by leaving a bomb or something in the basement, in the bathrooms, which are downstairs. And I don't know how we can control the threat through their location to our location. And we can't kick them out, because without what they pay in rent, we wouldn't be open anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think, and that's a great point, because somebody could be coming in through the dance school if they don't have security protocols in place, even to be doing some reconnaissance, walking throughout the building, and it does make you a lot more vulnerable.
Maybe have the dance company go through a training session just like the synagogue did.
Yeah, well, we can't force them to. They actually can't get up to our floor. It's locked off, but they can do
Okay.
whatever they want to do down on their floor.
That's a very good point. Well, actually, all three comments pointed out three important issues to be dealt with. Du Bois, have you had an assessment done?
Many years ago, we had local law enforcement go through the building. Unfortunately, we are so small and so poor that we really haven't been able to, we need a new front door, and we haven't been able to even afford to be able to do that. So
it would be great if you could apply for the state security grant. I'm telling you, if a new front door should be under 25,000, and that alone will get you the front door, and you don't have to do matching funds. And I think you have a great, if you don't have a good front door, that's your first line of defense, how somebody enters, right? I think that's a very compelling argument. Plus, you're standalone. Du Bois, where we have seen a good amount of, an increase in, white supremacy, that type of activity in those areas. I don't want to say Du Bois specifically, but I think you certainly have some vulnerabilities that would be key to hit on in this state grant. And if you're just out, you could ask for more than that, but if you're keeping it to a front door, it's under 25, and you would stand a decent chance of getting that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes. Well, I was figuring we would talk and that I would be contacting you because we probably need an official threat assessments because it's been years and years since we had ours done. So
yes. Okay.
Great. I think everybody, all the congregations have weighed in. Any final questions for Shawn? I know she has to go and do her training with JF&CS. Okay.
I just want to say thank you, because up here in rural Pennsylvania, where we have no resources, it's nice to know that we actually do have resources available. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome, Jessica. Please reach out. I hate for anybody to think that they're alone out there. I know geographically you're a bit of a distance, but we're all one community and we have to keep each other safe.
By the way, you saw what she did for our program. So if you need a phenomenal flyer for you.
Right, exactly.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All have a happy and a healthy and a sweet new year.
Yes.
We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Shana Tova.
Yep.